Okay, I will call the Village Park and Recreation meeting for October to order. Look for a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment. Do we have anyone virtually or in the audience who'd like to make any public comments? Obviously, talking about the playscape, if you'd like to provide more comments, we'll do that during the item. So I would assume that we have none then, so we'll get right started with the playscape.
If the
Yes.
public has nothing to say, I just wanted to thank village staff for so promptly getting a sign, the pedestrian crossing sign on Raymond Road. I know that was raised last month and I was over there, and thank you, Bill, and your crews for getting done as soon as you did. Ryan, thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started with our playscape planning conversation then.
Great. Blake, welcome again. I'm just going to let you take it away.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're very excited to show you the update here tonight. So I'm going to just get right into it. As a reminder, at the last meeting, we had talked about looking at a switch of the splash pad footprint and the playground footprint, and we have executed that. We've got it all pretty well drawn in. We actually started looking at some conceptual grading and feature placement. So I'm going to start this big picture and then I'll zoom in on some areas, but hopefully everyone's oriented. Here's the parking lot. North is to the plan right. Existing shelter or restrooms are in here, open air. So this is that grove of existing pine trees that we've been talking about since day one preserving. And then this is that top of the berm over by the diamonds. So diamonds are off to page left. Everyone oriented, hopefully. So what we've done, I'm going to zoom in. So you can see these dashed lines in here. Those are 1 foot contour elevations. So what we've done here is carved in the playground footprint at a fairly level, well, it's a very level plateau. And we've worked through the grades to make sure that we have ADA access from the parking lot through the space. And then this path starts to climb right about this point. It starts to climb up to this point, which is another flat landing, and then slightly up back to the elevation of the slab around the shelter. So we've got great ADA access all the way through and maintain access into the playscape from the lower elevation. Once we're up on the upper elevation, we're actually going to use the grade break that we have from the top, the shelter elevation, to the lower elevation and build a hillside play environment. So these are slides. These are climbing apparatuses coming up and down the slope. So this whole brown area represents the play surface space. So we've got large flat area, and then we've got an entire bank, basically 2 sides of our perimeter that is playable. This concrete walkway provides a perimeter hug, if you will, at a level elevation. So it's the upper elevation. And that then you can drop down into the playscape and play on the hill and slides. And these slides would all be essentially 10 inches off of the ground elevation. So they're very easy to get into. They're great for accessibility and very, very fun. So we're really thrilled with the way this fit in here. And it occupies almost the same real estate as your 2 existing playgrounds. We did take out that center passageway and we've rerouted it, but the nice thing is it's almost a perfect fit in those berm banks that you have. We were able to save all the trees, tucked in a little seating node here. All these brown rectangles are stone outcropping. So we've created a little stone canyon here to connect up our pathway with our center gathering node and then flowing into the splash pad footprint. Before I leave the playground though, I did want to show you, right now we're showing the swings up on this upper elevation, which would be the same plane, ground plane, as the plaza expansion or the patio expansion, if you will. We are showing, so again, some more stone outcroppings to essentially function as a division between the hardscape, and this is shown as artificial turf. So that functions as both a divider as well as natural seating that can face into the patio and into the playscape. This side of the stone is going to function as retaining. We don't want to carve into this hilltop. We want to leave that nice high observation space. We may end up filling a little bit actually on the back side of this to create an even larger flat grass space on top for, you know, viewing of the diamonds or viewing into the playground. So, you know, your two benches are going to stay right where they are. And again, we've gained a little bit of flat usable space here up on top. So grade wise, everything is fitting exactly like we had hoped and envisioned. At the tail end of this flat sidewalk, again, this is at the upper elevation. We're showing some stone steppers coming down to the lower elevation. So you can actually do a circuit, you know, all the way around. This is not an ADA accessible route, but we have that covered coming this way or actually coming up this way. Both options are fully ADA compliant. This is a little shortcut if you want to get up to that upper elevation. We're showing a gathering node here with stone seats around a tree, and we're thinking that could be some sort of donor recognition spot. You know, maybe it's not a tree here, maybe it's some small piece of art. You know, Sue and I had talked about if we end up going into, you know, a donor situation, do we look at an artificial, you know, like a bronze tree with leaflets that could be for donors, or, you know, some sort of donor recognition opportunity here right in the main throat of the entrance to the facility. So again, really happy with the way this is laying out. This is not the actual equipment we're looking at, but it's just to show you a sense of scale about how much equipment and the types of equipment that could fit into the space. We've skinnied up the hardscape on the east side of the existing shelter. It's actually quite wide now, and it's all in very poor condition. It's settled around the concrete slab and stoops for the building. So we'd like to pull that asphalt out, replace it with concrete that isn't settling. And when we do that, we want to create a green belt buffer here between the shelter space and the playground, which, you know, accomplishes several things. It brings in some shade. It continues our ring of trees that's already started here with the existing. So we've got this nice green belt. It also allows us to get a little bit of separation from folks who might be using the open air shelter from the playscape area. So we're pretty happy with the way that's all fitting. You can see we have a shade structure here shown, and what you probably can't see, maybe if I get in here, yeah, we're showing 2 additional light poles and then running our catenary lights in a zigzag pattern. So creating this canopy over the patio space, bridging from the open air shelter to our new shade kites. So this creates some really nice ambiance. It is shielded by the building and our new tree green belt here from any of the residents to the north. So, you know, while it's going to provide a nice ambiance here, we think it's still going to be, you know, the impact to the surrounding residents is going to be minimal. All right, so I'm going to shift over here and talk about the splash pad area. We were able to carve in a really nice footprint. We have 2 zones. This is going to be some of the larger equipment, the taller features with more activity, you know, the dumping bucket perhaps, and then a smaller zone for, you know, the lower profile, more toddler oriented features. So obviously kids can run back and forth, which is great, but we like to put some of our lower interaction elements here for the littles. We've carved out a couple seating areas. We've got some benches here and here. We've got a smaller seating spot with a couple picnic tables sort of tucked into these existing trees. You can actually see the shade cast here from this existing tree. So we think this is going to be a really nice spot in the dead of summer to sit. And then in this node, we're showing one option for changing stalls, which we had talked about. So one scenario is to put the changing stalls here. The other spot we're looking at is actually building onto the side of the existing structure, extending the roof line, and then tucking it in along this wall, which currently houses the bike rack. So that would need to get relocated. We don't think this is the best spot for it anyway with the new layout. So that said, we've got really great connectivity through here. We've maintained really good connectivity from our parking lot up to the shelter and accessing both of our activity nodes. So we're really, pretty pleased with the way all that's shaken out. Appreciate Bill and his staff looking into the utilities for this building. We've now determined where the water service is. That's this blue dashed line. And our sanitary sewer is coming right through here, and then it bends up and out to the road. So while building a splash pad directly over the sanitary line is not my optimal condition, we're going to talk with Bill and staff and figure out if maybe we want to reroute the sanitary, and come through here as an option. But without disrupting these existing trees, we really tried to shoehorn this in and get it to fit where we were really comfortable with the flow and amount of fixtures. So in terms of size, I did want to point out that I know that there's been a lot of comparison with the Sun Prairie project at Wetmore Park. And the wet deck, which is these two colored zones, is 25% larger. So it's considerably bigger than that facility. And of course, we are showing the dry deck perimeter all the way around it with lots of additional seating opportunities. What else can I highlight here? Talked about the plaza. So we need to do a little bit of analysis on this existing asphalt. We're hoping to save as much as we can, but there is a possibility that we'll have to maybe pull some of this out on the north side and make sure that all this is nice and tidy. And we obviously want to fix any poor condition materials when we're in there with the contractor. But the other piece to mention here, we are showing the addition of a new sidewalk along the north edge of the parking. Right now, your ADA stalls are striped here and here. Technically, these do not meet, actually neither side meet ADA without some sort of either striped walkway here or walkway on this side. So I think at a minimum, we would propose to run a sidewalk flush with the edge of asphalt, at least to the edge of the ADA stalls. And we may actually consider or request that you look at striping some additional stalls here as ADA. So we have a nice bank here that all feeds directly into our activity zone. One other piece to talk about, you can see in the background, this is that existing pathway that you have now that feeds into the upper elevation of the shelter. We are obviously showing this relocated or realigned to tie into this northwest corner of the parking. And that does a couple things. A, it frees up this space for activity in our splash pad. And B, if someone's entering the park from this direction and they don't care about this activity, they want to get to the diamonds, we've now given them a bypass down connecting with this path into the other activities within the park. So they can effectively avoid these two zones if they want, or they can come up and get straight into it. So connectivity has been greatly enhanced in pretty much all directions. I'm going to pause and let you guys ask me any questions here before we start talking about some of the splash pad features. Anyone have any questions or comments about the new version?
I have a question on the benches on the north side of the splash pad there. Is there any shade that's going to hit that at all, or are those just going to be the ones that get really hot in the summer?
Well, we are looking at sticking a tree in here so that once it grows up, would get some shade cast. Unfortunately, we have a bunch of utilities in here. There's an electric line running right behind it. We might be able to get some trees along the path here, which would help in the afternoon. But morning and midday, it's going to be pretty tough to do anything for those two benches.
Okay.
Good question. Is this what you guys were expecting, or are we on the right track?
Let me go ahead and ask the question that someone in the audience asked, because I wanted to ask the same question. I missed what you said. What is item 11? To the south, to the north of the splash
Here,
pad.
yep, those are changing stalls. So the concept there is that if a parent has a child who needs to change out of a wetsuit or into a dry suit, instead of using the bathrooms, which really need to be used for restroom purposes, we like to do exterior changing stalls to get a quicker turnover.
I in general like the revised location of where you put the changing area. I think I just don't think it would look that good on the backside of the shelter, at least in my opinion. It sort of tucks it away a little bit more. Less
Yeah, I
use conflict.
Yeah, I think we agree with you there. It keeps this free and clear for movement. This is kind of a quote unquote back of house area. So I think it's a nice spot for it. And we're going to do a tastefully designed structure. This is not going to be a shed or anything. We could also look at putting some additional trees and landscaping on the back side of it. So. Any other thoughts or questions on the new layout?
You can't see them, Blake, but they're really pondering. Just hang on.
All right.
One of the things that I'm super excited about is on the playground piece, the elevation drop on the south side creates a really exciting piece for kids of all ages. More and more, we're being asked for creating more natural play areas, and who doesn't remember just how fun it is to roll down a hill? And those slides are great for people that have mobility issues. They're great for little kids. It's a great place for parents to gather. I think one of the things you're seeing now in playgrounds is designing playgrounds for the parents and the grandparents, as well as the kids that are playing. And I think you've done a really nice job of that surrounding the whole playground, but in particular on that south side. I think that elevation drop is going to be something we don't have in any other playgrounds.
Yeah, Sue, I appreciate you making the comment about all ages. That you're absolutely correct that a lot of those images that I've shown you in the last couple meetings of I'll call it the new wave of playground design, we've integrated here. And so you hit it right on the head. I mean, this is going to be a really interactive space. A lot of these hill elements become a physical challenge as well as a play element. So you're sort of tricking kids into getting exercise while they're playing, and they're really dynamic spaces. So yeah, we're really pleased with the way it tucks into your site.
Yeah, we could pass the crowd mic around, or I mean, you can go up to the podium, but up to you.
Yeah, step up to the mic, please.
Jeff Ryan. Just had one question on the west side there by the splash pad area, where again, it's pedestrian safety. And is there any going to be, you mentioned before, something maybe about fences at particular areas to guide people? Like during the Wana Fest and things, the pool might not be open, but the playground will still be open. and people coming in through there and cutting through, is there any barrier for anything if our vehicles are still going on? And that still is up in the air, I believe, the vehicle situation on special days.
Yeah, so in terms of vehicle access, they will still have this corridor just like they have now. Now, they would not be able to drive through this space. That will be prohibited. So yeah, this is still maintained for vehicular access, but no, I do not want them in this space.
And as far as like the Wanafest and that, obviously we'd work with Wanafest to restrict any or all traffic.
Last year,
Tate Chith. Yes, because last year during Wanafest, cars were driving up here especially during the car show part of Wanafest. And so want to make sure that they don't continue to just drive there when people are walking. And then they had the big trucks for the bands were backing up into those that road as well.
Yeah, obviously with this product or with this being installed there, a lot of that all would be addressed and some changes would have to be made.
Blake, let me ask you what you see as the interface, I guess, between the shaded area of the shelter and all of the places where kids will play. I have been thinking I was not interested in a whole lot of shade, lily pad kinds of things, because I imagine people, well, originally the pool, the splash pad was going to be down here, but do you envision people sitting under that shelter and watching their kids? Because I was there on Sunday and there were 4 kids playing in the current playground and the mom was underneath the shelter. Do you came to mind again, because we're talking about adding some trees between where the playground will be and where the shelter is. Do you just see that shelter as kind of too far away to consider it to be very useful for adults vis-a-vis their children playing here?
No, I don't actually. So my vision for these trees is, they would be open at the bottom and, limbed up. So we'd have just canopies. So your sight lines remain solid all the way through. And actually from the edge of this concrete, it starts to slope down. So your sight lines from in here into the playground will be excellent. I think that a lot of parents are going to hang out here under this shade structure that, if we're just showing a few picnic tables, but I would envision more out here. I think this is going to be a very popular space to watch your kids play. I think this is going to be a very active spot, probably more so for the splash pad users, but it's a very good mixing bowl area. But the edge of our playground is actually closer now in our proposal to the shelter than it is currently. The edge of the existing playground is right about here. Actually, you can kind of see it in the background. So we're moving the play space actually closer. So I think the phenomenon that you saw over the weekend is exactly the way it should function. I also want to point out the colors that you're seeing here in the surfacing on both the splash pad and the playground are not the colors of the surfacing we're proposing. This was just to show you the different blocks of usage. As we get into the actual feature layout, we'll be working through surfacing patterns and, bringing the colors and making this whole thing come to life.
Any other questions from committee members before we move on to the next stage of the presentation? Go ahead.
All right, so it sounds like we're on the right track and we can keep moving.
Yep.
All right, sounds great. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do was talk a little bit about some of the splash pad features that we're proposing. At our last meeting, we had talked about a theme, picking up the concept of the trees and some of the prairie and the agriculture, and keeping everything very natural instead of over the top whimsical or some other theme. So I pulled together cut sheets of some of the features we're proposing, both the ground sprays and the vertical features. And I'll show you how it all kind of weaves together into this cohesive theme. So some of the ground sprays, this is called a geyser. It has multiple perforations, and you can control how this pattern works. If you plug up some of the holes with your hand or foot, it influences the pattern on some of the others. Similar to the bloom, I really like using ground sprays with spreading patterns. I think you get a lot of play value. You can see kind of how the scale of that might look. The fountain's a little bit smaller, better for the littles. So we'll probably have some of these fountains in the toddler zone. And each of these have slightly different water particle size. So you can kind of see the droplet sizing here as I scroll through. The funnel is one of our favorites. It's a very low laminar effect. And so the nice thing is you can run your finger around it and kind of break the plane of that laminar flow. Very, very interactive for the littles. So we would propose to have, maybe 3 or 4 of these in a grouping. So you'd have several kids playing together. Pod spray, this one is really fun. You can actually step on 1 or 2 of these and it increases the flow on the center fountain. So it becomes a team building exercise. You get your brother or sister or friends together and you can each step on one. It forces this one higher. So it's again, we like to promote the interaction between children in the playscape. We're also looking at introducing a water table. We had heard some comments from one of the residents at our last meeting that having a feature like this was really important. And so this, I think, is going to be a really fun interactive space. We've got multiple levels of play, cascading water, different textures. You spin these balls to control the water flow, and a really great way to have a wheelchair access to vertical play. Bringing in some whimsical characters here, but tying into that nature theme, butterfly. Don't get tied to any of these colors. The oranges and yellows, we can change those to whatever color we like. We have weeds. So this is kind of the introduction of plant life, coming into our playscape. We get the little version, we get the taller version. Again, I'm trying to promote as much interaction in these features as I can. You can see the water spray pattern is quite large, so multiple children can play in it at one time. I really like this feature, sort of showing the what might be a typical prairie plant emerging with these broad leaves, kind of a flower-esque image. This is called a turtle. I don't see it as a turtle. I see it again as a plant with multiple leaves. It has 2 dumping buckets that get fed by these pipes. Very organic shape, very, very much indicative of plant life in the prairie. Again, bringing in this concept of the vine and dumping buckets. This one's a little bit bigger. This one has six colored Lexan buckets that fill with water and then dump at different times. So again, very interactive. Kids get to watch and guess which one will dump next. The pine tree is probably the feature I'm most excited about for your project. I want to do a grove of these, so maybe 4 or 5 of them. So we create this forest effect. This one, I do actually really like the colors. I think it's perfect. I'm going to flip back to our the existing trees that we're trying so hard to save. I think, having, picking up on this concept and replicating it here is going to be a really nice touch. And, the idea of a prairie flower kind of tipping over, dumping bucket. This one actually spins around. Potentially a large leaf. And then these are some, these images got kind of blown out, but you can see some of these features in the background. These are the spinning flowers. This is that leaf I was talking about. Here's one of the butterflies, so you can get a sense of scale. Here's some of the flowers. This is the one that drooped over. Here are some more flowers. This would be the paint scheme I would propose for that pine tree, right? The brown stem, the green leaves. And actually, this is a great image because you can see the shadow cast on the concrete of the colored Lexan. You can see how it casts these colored shadows on the ground, and throughout the day, those move. So it's always, always pushing the kids to move around and chase the color. Here's a much better shot of some of these bigger features in real life and scale. Here's that garden bug. I'm not sure I would do it in this aqua blue, something more muted perhaps. And then here's a shot of that leaf feature. So trying to keep everything very natural, garden theme, prairie theme, I think fits really well. Here's a shot of that turtle. So those are some of the main features we're proposing to use on the pad. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on any of these? Can you see how it's unifying this prairie theme together?
It feels a little bit like Bug's Life. Since the first thing that came to mind.
Hopefully that's a good thing.
I think definitely trying to match some of the colors to the surrounding landscape would be important. Like, for example, on the pine trees, trying to match the needles to the trees that are already there. I think it would look nice, make it look a little more cohesive.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts or questions?
There's a lot of nodding going on again, Blake.
Okay, good.
I'm just trying to think of my daughter would like anything that you've shown on there. So I don't see anything that really stood out as like, this would not be a good idea. And I'm glad that you included the inclusive water table on there. That was good to see.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great feature. It has different elevations, and for some of the taller kids, this is a really nice feature. It cascades from one to another and then feeds the system. So we're really excited about that one. I'm glad you like it.
Blake, I just wanted, over the last couple of months, I've watched a few water parks, and kids just seem to love to stand underneath the buckets, dumping under them. So I just wanted to stress that I'd like to see at least one of those in the plan. So of all the various items, those dumping buckets just seem to appeal to kids in a way I don't understand, but I certainly want to make sure they're included here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We have a couple of options. So these are both dumping buckets. They're smaller. I think the one you're talking about maybe cascades out, hits a platform and explodes out. That's the impact you're thinking about?
I don't have any particular impact in mind at all. I've just seen how kids love standing under there and waiting to be hit by the water.
Got it.
However you include it is fine with me.
I'll make it happen. Thank you. So once we solidify our palette of equipment here for the splash pad, then we're going to migrate into design of the playground, which is actually the next topic to talk to you about tonight. So I think I'm hearing that we're going down the right path with the feature selections. I'll continue to work on colors and eventually come back to you with a full rendering of everything, playground and splash pad with all the colors. So you'll get to see how it all works together. Any other comments on any of the features, or should I transition into playground and next steps?
Transition.
All right. I hope you guys are excited as we are, because we are so thrilled with the way this is going. All right, so I want to talk about our next steps. So when we design custom playgrounds like this, I think I've mentioned this before, we pre-select a playground manufacturer, because as we start to select and design features, it's really not an apples to apples from one manufacturer to another. So we vet multiple manufacturers up front. with the owner and then pre-select one to work with us to get a full design. And then oftentimes we have the owner pre-order the equipment before the contract is out. And I know we've talked about all that. So since I saw you last, Sue and I developed an RFQ, if you will. We sent it out to some playground vendors, introducing the project and inviting them to submit their impressions, their approach, and their thoughts about the project to see which one might be the best fit for us as we move forward into detailed design on this space. And we got 2 very good responses back from our invitation. Sue and I have reviewed both of them and vetted them. We also spent time, my design team spent time looking at a lot of their prior projects on their website and some of the materials they submitted to us. We have a ton of past experience with both of these companies. We're very comfortable with both. At the end of the day, we are going to recommend one over the other based on the prior projects that they've done and how well I think they will fit into your project. This one company in particular is extremely strong in their hillside play. We've done a number of projects with them in a sort of a similar scale and nature, and we think that they are probably best suited to fit, this type of playscape. So our recommendation is to move forward with Landscape Structures. They're the manufacturer. They're based out of the Twin Cities, and their sales rep is Gerber Leisure Products out of Mount Horeb. So I'm happy to talk through any of that review of the projects, or if you want more information on that, Sue and I can answer questions on that. But our recommendation is to move forward with that selected vendor for your project. Any questions or comments with that? I think you guys have some of their equipment already in the village and certainly at the school.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Blake. We have worked with Gerber Leisure Products many times over the last 20 years. We've had really great luck. Their current sales rep, who we've been dealing with out at Meadowbrook Park, is very responsive, very, very quick to help us in any way that she can. I think Blake's recommendation of this vendor is the right way to go. Jeff, do you want me to speak on your behalf, or do you want to share what you learned, what you heard last week? I'm going to let you talk. Hop up. Last week, Jeff was at a state park and rec workshop where they looked at playgrounds, and he had some conversations with some other park and rec departments.
Just one of the communities I was talking with, they use one of these vendors currently with the project, and they're having some challenges, but I don't know all the details on it, but I'm willing to follow up on it. And it was not the one that Blake had suggested. So I will do some research as needed, but it sounds like we have a plan in place already, but that's all I got.
Yeah, it sounds like that was our only hesitation with the other vendor. With some recent hiccups, doesn't mean that they're not a great vendor, but I think that just puts some more strength to Blake's recommendation of heading over to Gerber.
So with approval from the board tonight, we would bring them into the design fold and discussion and really start to dig into feature layout and selection. Come back to you guys with a full equipment layout. This would be much more fleshed out, and I would be able to show you cut sheets and actually 3D renderings of how this whole thing is going to unfold. So that's a very exciting next step for us. It is a little bit of a time chunk for us, so I'm not sure we'll be ready for your next board meeting. We need to really sort of digest and get through all that, but we're going to be cranking up our design machine here really quickly after tonight. Any comments or questions?
I would just look for consensus on recommending this vendor. It doesn't say anything about an official motion in our packet about
I don't
taking
think we need
action?
an official vote.
Yeah,
But
just general consensus that everybody is okay with the vendor. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would do now is if any of the other neighbors have any additional input on the design or anything that you've seen here tonight, if you'd like to provide that, you can go up to the podium if you have any additional feedback that you'd like to provide. Otherwise, we can move on.
I have a couple just housekeeping items. So one of the things that Blake and I talked about earlier, in particular with planning for the playground, is some maybe smaller user group meetings that will take place before we get back to the park committee. In particular, we want the help of the schools to reach out to those families that have kids with mobility issues to try to really make sure we're making good decisions on that playground piece. So some of that will be happening alongside. We also, Village Administrator Todd Schmidt and I are going to start the conversation on the idea of some fundraising for this project. As maybe you remember, Blake gave us an overall proposed budget. With funding that's coming through the village board, we're going to be a fair share of the way towards that, but there's definitely going to be some room for some private fundraising. Blake and his team are going to design an awesome facility, and then there's going to be room for people to help to make it even more awesome. So Bob will let you pay for a dump bucket if you would like to. We'll put your name on it. Get wet courtesy of Bob Curry if you'd like. So that's going to get started. So if anyone wants to be a part of that process, I know Sam has agreed to sit in on that with us as well. So if you have any ideas, any connections, want to be a part of that, we would absolutely welcome that. And then a final piece on my list is a little bit about the park shelter. I want to point out that we are in the process right now of preparing a newsletter that will go out to homes in December that will talk about park shelters next summer. Yes, we're just like the stores downtown that were like 3 seasons ahead. But because of the anticipated construction at this location next summer, I just wanted the park committee to know that we are going to pull Centennial Park from the park shelter rental system, because we anticipate that trying to get graduation parties and family reunions in and around a construction zone would not be good for anybody. So I just wanted to let you know that in advance, that for the 2024 season, this particular park shelter will not be available to rent, but there are 14 others. So there are a lot of options, and our team will definitely be able to help people find a better spot. I'm sorry?
No, you're not renting it. It's available.
So Bill is asking me without his mic turned on. I think, will you be able to use it? Like the restrooms, is that what you mean? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It'll be available for walk-up use and people that are in the park for other purposes, but just not reserved for large gatherings.
Let me offer a friendly amendment to that statement. We may have to close this door when we're pouring this concrete, and there may be a temporary closure if we're doing concrete surround work, but yeah, by and large, I think you're right. We would have the construction perimeter on the south side and allow public access there.
Perfect. Thanks, Blake. So Bill, do you have anything else?
With the mic on? No, I don't.
Perfect. So that would be the end of this item. Thank you.
Perfect. So our next item is considering a
Blake.
donation proposal from Phil for permanent lighting on the Village Park main shelter and the Village Center.
Okay, so for years, I've been looking at our village center at Christmas time and when there's things going on in the park, and I kept thinking it would be nice to have some lighting up there. So I contacted Traditions Lighting, and they gave me a proposal to put LED lighting up there to follow the whole roof line. And then they put this up and then they cover it with a cover that matches the soffit and everything. So you don't know that it's there until you turn it on. Uh, to do, the backside and south end of the village center would cost about $16,000. To add the front would be about another 14. And to do the park shelter that's on your right when you go in to the two sides and the front would be approximately $7,000. I've secured private donations so far of about 27,000, so I can do the park backside of the village center and the park shelter this year. Some of my donations won't come in until next year. I've got a couple of people that like to make $5,000 donations, but they've already made them for this year, so I was a little late. But then again, traditions may not be able to do it for me this fall. But regardless, this can be done. It can be a warm white most of the year, like when we have band concerts and we just want to accent the village center. At Breast Cancer Month, we can turn it pink. For what's Light the Night Blue, we can turn this blue. For Wanakee home games, we can go purple. And then there's some options for seasonal colors, patriotic colors, and etc. But I can have it accomplished with all private donations. The cost of running it would go on the village bill, probably cost 50 cents a night. It's all LED. And they say that this would last approximately 10 years. Then I'd have to come back if I'm still around and find some more donors to bring it up to date. So that's what I'd like to do. And I'd like to have a local company, Traditions Lighting, do it for us.
Who controls the color change?
Oh, that would be I'm sorry,
Mike, well,
Tim Luttrell, who controls the color changes?
that would be our Parks Department. It goes, it's a Bluetooth, Jeff was at the meeting when we talked to this guy, but it would be from somebody in the Parks Department. And if you had,
Because we're talking evening,
yeah,
just so the parks staff know that.
It'd actually be more a village center than the park staff.
Depends on which building you're talking about, but I'm sure it's Bluetooth and I'm sure we'll be able to pre-program it. It's not like we'll have to be down there with our phones making it change colors. I'm sure it's fully automated and can make that happen.
so the question is, will you accept the donation?
I certainly don't have any objections to it. Obviously, we're not using
we
any
need a
village
motion?
dollars for it. In the packet, it doesn't say anything about.
There's your
motion. Oh, my
So for
junk.
process, if it's a motion or whatever it might be, does it have to go to the village board then, or is
Yes,
does this
I think we
body?
should take it to the
Yeah,
village
if
board.
you'd like
with your
it, if you'd like it to go to the village board, I guess I would make the motion to approve the donation request.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
You're the second. All in favor, say aye.
I.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.